Hey guys, welcome to my channel. It has been so long, but I have finished my interview season for applying to my first job as a doctor, and I just wanted to sit down and reflect on this past year with you guys. I remember my first rotation this year was in July, and it was a head and neck rotation. It ended up being a very intense rotation because it's actually very high volume and the attendings are actually quite academic. So they expected us to be studying all the time about head and neck pathology. And to be frank, when I started the rotation, I was expecting to suture a lot and I was not very prepared. And my very first day, one of my now mentors pimped me on salivary gland tumors. And I remember thinking, apparently I don't even know what a salivary gland is because I remembered the major glands, but I forgot about the minor ones, which are just like tiny glands that line the mucosa from the back of your throat down. But I think that this rotation, even though it was really hard and stressful, it turned out to be one of my most favorite rotations because I feel like I grew so much in the scope of my knowledge. I mean, obviously I started at zero, but I got to this point where I'm doing research with a couple of the attendings now and having that opportunity to contribute to the field. So I think if you're struggling with imposter syndrome, I hope that this message is a bit of encouragement to you. I'm not even exaggerating. I knew absolutely nothing about head and neck when I started this rotation. If you feel like you're not doing a good job or that you don't measure up to where you are, just recognize that it's okay to feel that way. It's another opportunity to grow. After my head and neck rotation, I went to Phoenix and I had the opportunity to do a minimally invasive / acute care surgery rotation. I had so much fun on this rotation. The attending said that my purpose was basically to just be in the OR as much as possible. I had one attending who had his own playlist with a bunch of Broadway musical music. He also brought a disco ball into the OR and he would just sing at the top of his lungs. And it was really awesome. During this time, I learned to become a lot more efficient, both at taking a history and physical in an organized and thorough manner and being able to document it fast and completely. Challenged me to become more analytical when I'm doing a history and physical, and I just had an absolute fun time on this rotation because I also got to explore the city with my friends. We got to eat out quite a lot. And then after that rotation, I did a rotation in general surgery. It was during this rotation when I worked with some M3s. So I would pretend to be a patient and have them interview me and practice presenting, and then we would talk through various pathologies. And I thought that this was just so much fun. I remember after I taught one of the M3s how to do a suture, and she put in her first suture on a patient, and it was actually a pretty good closure. She like came and hugged me after the case because she was so happy. I don't know, like it was just a really sweet time. And there was an M3 who I had met from my general surgery rotation. My attending asked us if we already knew each other, and she said, yeah, she's my mentor. Even though to me, I felt like I was just chilling and bored, so let's talk about surgery. I realized that you make a bigger impact on others than you realize, which brings me to the next month. I did another away rotation in acute care surgery. I think it was this rotation where I started considering the importance of palliative care. There were some really truly hard cases. They made me really sad. I saw some patients who had an open abdomen because they were so unstable and we had to go back for multiple operations, and just situations like that where steps that we've already taken are very difficult for the patient and can cause like a big emotional burden to them. Just the value of listening to somebody and letting them express their pain and mourning over something that's happened to their body. I think that's a very important space that I want to lean into in my future practice. Being able to confront their fears and their suffering is just as important in treating their condition and them as a person instead of just focusing on next steps. Be intentional with your time with patients, and that a little bit of listening can go a very long way. I had some chill months after all of that surgery. I did that intentionally because I wanted some extra time for interviews. So I did an anatomy course, which was actually super fun. I did a thyroidectomy. I remember I found some parathyroid glands, and that was the biggest accomplishment of my M4 year probably. I also took evidence-based medicine and radiology. To be honest, I didn't learn a crazy amount of stuff, but I guess it was cool. Which brings us to this past month, and that was my trauma rotation. There was this joke that I heard from the intern that trauma is the rotation that describes the experience of the residents versus the patient. I think I started seeing some of the weight of the pandemic and how it placed a lot of burdens on the nurses and just the healthcare system in general. And some of the emotions that I saw in trauma are very hard. These freak accidents happen to really young patients who would have had a wonderful life ahead of them. And then we saw old people who fell. That forced me to confront some of the frailty of the aging population and made me consider, honestly, like my parents and my grandparents. Some of these falls as a young person in their 20s, you know, like you just fall and you get back up. If you're 90 years old and you fall, you could break your femur. I had to confront kind of the reality of how fragile human life can be. So yeah, I think I'm still processing all the things that I learned from trauma. Anyhow, thanks you guys so much for listening to me ramble. It's been an insane journey. I feel like I've grown so much in 1 year, and I'm just really excited to continue growing and continue learning. I think overall, just so grateful for this time in my life and for the people I've met who have intentionally continued to reach out to me and mentor me during this year. And I'm grateful that I've found role models like surgeons who are able to provide just like absolute excellent care. But yeah, thanks for letting me ramble. I'll see you in the next one.